What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, it may look like I'm on some exotic island somewhere, but I'm actually on a beach right here in Florida, specifically Port Orange, Florida. Now, Florida beaches get millions and millions of visitors each year. In fact, the number is quite astounding. Florida beaches get 70 times the amount of visitors than Yellowstone Park. 117 million people visit Florida each and every year, most of which are right here from the United States. So what am I asked frequently? Well, how can I take advantage of that when it comes to my real estate goals, specifically buying an investment property or a second home? Well, we're going to talk about that in this video right now. All right, guys, let's get started. We're gonna break down two purchase types that are surrounded with mystery. Really, people don't understand what it takes to buy a second home or an investment property. So let's break it all down. First, we'll start with a second home. Now, when it comes to a second home, the person is saying, I want to purchase this house and occupy it a few weeks out of each year, but I don't want to rely on any sort of rental income to qualify for it. So when it comes to qualifying income-wise, the individual must be able to qualify with their current mortgage payment, if applicable, and also the second home mortgage payment. Now, could someone take advantage of, say, short-term leases in the time that they're not using the property? Sure. Depending on local regulations and guidelines, the person is able to do this and not interfere with their occupancy declaration when they're buying the home. So if the lender identifies that there's potential for maybe short-term rental income, it's not a problem, but the borrower cannot qualify for the home with that potential rental income. The minimum down payment for a second home is only 10%. So that means you can buy a second home with as little as 10%. Let's break that down. For example, you find a beach home that's $400,000. Your down payment is $40,000. In addition to the down payment, of course, you'll have your standard closing costs, and you may be required to have a certain amount of reserves in order to qualify. What are reserves? Reserves are basically your monthly mortgage payment plus any sort of HOA dues times however many months. So for example, if you're required to have 6 months reserves, that means you'd have to have 6 months of your principal, interest, tax, insurance, and HOA dues. Now, when it comes to a second home, lending guidelines do restrict how close a second property can be to your primary residence. In many cases, the property must be a good distance from your primary residence. However, when you live in a place like Florida, for example, where you're surrounded by attractions, tourist attractions, beaches, you can actually buy second homes relatively close to your primary residence. So for example, I live about 45 minutes or about 30 miles from the beach. Anywhere else, and a second home purchase wouldn't be possible. But because this is an attraction, if you would, or a tourist destination, I'm able to purchase a second home right here close to my primary residence. The same would be true if I wanted to buy a home, say by a theme park like Disney or Universal. Even though they're not that far from my home, maybe 35, 45 minutes, I could buy it as a second home because of the fact that it's a tourist destination. This can make buying a second home in a place like Florida so much more obtainable than in other places. Now, when it comes to an investment property, things are a little bit different. In the case of an investment property purchase, the owner is essentially saying, I intend to rent this out and receive rental income from a tenant. Now, here's where buying an investment property gets really cool. The potential rental income that's identified for that property can be used as income to help the purchaser qualify for the property. How does that work? Well, basically, when we order the appraisal, what we'll do is order a rent schedule along with the appraisal. The appraiser will go out and do his normal assessment of the property's value, but also determine a potential rental income and then report that back with the appraisal. Now, once we have that potential rental income, what we'll do is use typically about 75% of that as qualifying income for the borrower. So we take 75% of that potential rental income and add it essentially to the borrower's income. This is what makes buying an investment property so obtainable for so many, regardless of their income. Now, what we also have to consider is what it takes up front. The down payment requirement for an investment property is a little bit higher than what it takes to buy a second home. The minimum down payment is 15%, and the borrower must be able to show a certain amount of reserves when they buy the property. So you're basically at 15% down plus closing costs and applicable reserves. Now, when it comes to the opportunity that you get from an investment purchase, there's really 4 main things that the owner is capitalizing on. 1 is monthly cash flow. 2 is monthly mortgage principal reduction. 3 is property value appreciation over time. And 4, any applicable tax benefits or deductions that you may qualify for. Now, if you'd like to talk about the details of what those 4 things mean, just reach out to me and we can have a conversation. Now, it's also important to remember that in all lending, lenders are analyzing risk. And so second home and investment type purchases usually come with higher interest rates than your standard primary residence purchase. Now, there was a time where second home interest rates were comparable to your primary residence purchases, but in an effort to make sure that more funds were available for people's primary residence purchases, the big securitizers like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac got rid of those less expensive or lower interest rates on the second home purchases to make them more comparable to an investment purchase. So for now, second home interest rates and investment home interest rates are kind of the same. Remember this when you're rate shopping for your second home and investment property. So yes, there are so many different benefits when it comes to purchasing a second home or an investment property. And hopefully this video has basically shown you that it is a lot more possible and obtainable than most people would assume. So if you're interested in purchasing your very own second home or investment property, reach out to me directly. My contact information is in the description below. You can always use my Calendly link and we can link up for a one-on-one appointment where you can talk with me directly, no obligations, no pressure, just basically good planning. Otherwise, guys, thanks so much for watching. As always, I invite you to subscribe to the channel so you can get notified when I drop content like this each and every week. If you haven't done it yet this year, come on out, visit Florida beaches. We'd love to have you guys. Take care. Talk to you soon. Home Loan Drew is going swimming. In values in the last, say, 30 years.
Oh, come on, man.